What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel and to another Outriders video. As the name of the thumbnail suggests, how bad is Cannonball really, and can we make it work? Or for that matter, should we make it work? I think the answers might surprise you, but as always, if you enjoy this video or find it useful in any way, please do consider giving it a like, subbing to the channel, perhaps sharing the video with a buddy. It really does help the channel grow, and it just means a whole lot to me. But without any further ado, let's jump right in. Now, first things first, let me obviously say I am by no means telling you to stop watching this video and go and farm Cannonball pieces. The results are not fantastic, and this set definitely does underperform against almost any other set for any other class. But the fact of the matter is, it has become a little bit of a meme due to the fact that Cannonball being the only neutral set, often people lament the fact that when they do see legendary armor pieces drop, they're Cannonball pieces and they can do nothing with them except for maybe stripping off Captain Hunter and then essentially throwing away the rest. However, something that's always come up in videos and comments as well as in the streams is the set really as bad as it seems? Is there a way we can make it work? And if we were to try and make it work, how would we go about doing it? That's what I set out with the idea of this video, and it is something that's been long coming because I did end up testing this with literally each one of the 4 characters. And the point is that I think that Cannonball, not because of anything, especially not because of the perk that the set gives, which essentially reloads your weapon when you get a melee kill, that didn't make me make the choice that I did, but I ended up settling with Devastator due to the fact that since it is an underperforming set, the point is we want to give you as much as possible survivability, which of course the Devastator has. Then, since it seems to be a melee flavored set, let's go ahead and pivot heavy into melee. And again, the Devastator is perfectly suited for this with specific nodes in the skill tree that directly cater to this. And then last but not least, the Devastator also features very good abilities that work in the close range area or arena or space, if you want to put it that way. And that's of course why I went with the Devastator. Now, the footage that you're seeing in the background is me of course running a Cannonball set. So it's 3 pieces of Cannonball and then 2 legendary pieces, which we're going to look at the details of just now. But as you can see, it's clearly almost impossible to die while using this setup. And it's actually quite hilarious the amount of damage that you can take, even though you're not really pushing out that much. Now, I did try to do 2 sets of footage, one where I was essentially just playing around skills and just using melee and just slowly but surely whittling down the enemies, and then a second set of videos where I was then combining things like Moaning Winds into it, which is just really strong and still really overperforms. Now, what is indicative of this, what you're seeing here, is that first of all, Moaning Winds, even though it was nerfed, is still, and put on a global cooldown, it still deals a shitload of damage and is still really strong. Secondly, Devastator is bar none the toughest class of the 4, especially when you play it in this kind of way. And then thirdly, Cannonball kind of really isn't that great. However, in playing this, and what I did sort of test, is that due to how aggro is handled in this game, and essentially whoever's closest to the enemies get most of the attention directed their way, most of the attacks directed their way, they get shot at, they get abilities thrown on them. This character is kind of like the perfect thing to essentially attract all of the attention and let your teammates who are in the back have free reign and not basically get harassed by enemies. You are getting so much healing and you have so much damage resistance due to the utilization of both Golem and Reflect, as well as just the general sturdiness of the Devastator, that you can't really go down unless you essentially fall asleep on your keyboard, which is possible with this build due to the low amount of damage that you push out, especially if you don't dip into the Moaning Winds meta. If you do the Moaning Winds meta, you can set up some big sweeps with this, and it definitely does improve the kill speed a lot. But again, I know that style of play is not everybody's cup of tea, and also not something that everybody enjoys. When it comes to the actual build, let's go ahead and look at skills first. What I've chosen here is Tremor, Reflect Bullets, and Golem. Reason being for each one of these three choices is Tremor. Essentially, we're going to be in close range the entire time with this build because we're trying to melee stuff. We're trying to do AoE melee. So Tremor is basically going to just keep exploding and also just feeding you life. This adds to the general survivability of the build, and added on to Golem's survivability as well as reflex bullets, it essentially makes you unkillable. Now, I know that reflex bullets is kind of like... did I just say reflex bullets? Reflect bullets is a dead skill against expeditions that have monsters in them, but the point is that reflect bullets also allows you to ramp up your anomaly as well as like basically proc some of the other mods that you have on your gear. And since you can repeatedly do that by just activating reflect bullets and taking it off, it's still a really good skill to have in here. I experimented with leap as well, just so that you can have some movability around the map and so that you can always get into close range. It's totally your choice. You can absolutely do that as well. This is, after all, a build just for shits and giggles, so really the sky's the limit here. Now, when we get over to the actual gear itself, and just bear in mind, as I've said, if this is not indicative of how open the meta in this game is right now, or meta, right, is that you can still do CT50s with this build. It's gonna take you like 15 minutes to finish, right? Maybe not quite that bad, maybe like 12 minutes, maybe something like that, but it's you can totally do it, and it totally works. And the funny thing is, it's almost like extreme low effort with this, because you're just essentially hitting all of your skills as they come off cooldown, and you're just basically making sure that you stay alive while you slowly but surely whittle down the enemy. Now, this process goes a lot slower if you're actually doing it in a group environment, because then of course you're dependent on your teammates to really push the damage. But in any case, in terms of weapons, I'm using a death shield because, again, the fortress ramp up that you see from death shield just gives you that additional armor and resistance, which just makes you even more sturdy. Plus it gives you 30% additional damage, which is severely lacking in this build. So any kind of boost that you can give yourself is great. I don't know why my face is so itchy. And then we're putting Claymore Torrent on here because Claymore Torrent is just amazing. And again, you're fighting in close range the entire time. You're surrounded by enemies, as you saw in the footage that I had on earlier. So every time when you fire a bunch of these shots in, you're going to proc these claymores all over you, and they're basically going to whittle down the enemy's life as well. Now, I mentioned the Moaning Winds reload meta, and that's of course here, the Anemoy with Moaning Winds and Radiation Splash on, and then I have Moaning Winds and Clip Combustion on Torment and Agony. So I can switch between these. In the footage that you were watching earlier, I was literally just switching to Anemoy every time, so I wasn't even engaging the pistol, but nonetheless, it's crazy. Then when we get to the actual gear pieces, as mentioned, this has 3 pieces of Cannonball. I basically chose the 3 ones that I thought had the best mod that I wanted to keep on them, and so that ended up giving me the chest, the gloves, and the legs. But when we look at the headpiece over here, again, I wanted to basically show how it doesn't really matter what you put into this build. It's first of all, the Devastator being super sturdy and the correct skill setup. You just, as long as you don't die, you don't lose the expedition, right? So the point is, we have anomaly, power, skills, life leech, and cooldown reduction on here. The majority of our damage is going to be coming from our abilities. We're not so much built for dealing bullet damage, and so even though we have extremely low anomaly power here of less than 100k, also know that none of these pieces I've actually upgraded them, because again, this is a throwaway build that I just wanted to show whether we could make this work or not. Now, if I push more stats into this and actually increase the anomaly power and some of the substats, yes, it will perform better for sure, but again, it's not comparable to one of the other sets. And spending resources to boost this up for the nominal return that you can get means that you're not spending those resources on another more worthy set. And so that's why I didn't do it, and that's also why I pretty much tell you not to do it. I have martial arts on here, which reduces the cooldown of the melee skill. We melee a lot with this, whether it's the single shove melee or single hit melee, or if we're doing the AoE, you want to be doing that as much as possible just for the sake of this build, right? And for some of the decisions that we've made in the class tree, which you'll see. So this just reduces the cooldown, because believe it or not, melee actually does have a cooldown. By the way, all of the people that are going to be correcting me on my pronunciation of melee, it is what it is. I am not going to say melee. I don't give a fuck what you guys say.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Then seismic impulse here, this generates essentially like a pulse around you every 6 seconds that deals a certain amount of damage. It's got a 5-meter radius, which is almost the same, well, basically the same radius as Moaning Winds. And well, Moaning Winds is 8, but I mean, who's counting? So the point is, this will just deal an additional, you know, a bit of damage, and you don't have to do anything to make this happen. This just happens by itself every 6 seconds. And since the fights last so terribly long, you're going to see a lot of those 6 seconds. So the damage is going to stack up. Then on the chest piece, which is our first piece of Cannonball, we have Not Impressed, which means we take 25% less damage from elites. Elites are really the only thing that you know, have any way of threatening you with this build. But as you saw in the footage earlier, I was going toe to toe with 2 Brood Mothers, which is essentially probably one of the worst fights that you can have in melee range, and they were just not being able to, you know, get me down in life. So it works quite well. I have what comes around, or not what comes around, but what goes around on here, which is also a reflect bullets kind of skill, but this says that incoming bullets have a 30% chance of being deflected towards an enemy, dealing actually very low damage of basically 13k. But bullet expeditions, or let's say human expeditions where you're getting shot at, especially by like snipers and people from far away, are a lot more damaging to this build than, you know, fighting monsters where you have them close up against you the whole time and you can do the most damage to them but also drain their life. So the point is that you want to be allowing yourself to survive as much of that damage and maybe get, you know, more enemies to come in closer, which in some cases with the bullet maps is more difficult, because like for instance Boomtown, when you come out of the gate, you have some snipers in the back and they will try to hit you. So this will sometimes save you from a little bit of damage, but it's kind of like dead here. I've been experimenting with this and this is just the one that I settled on. There's not really anything better to put in the slot. Then on the leg pieces, we have Circle of Power and we have Brawl. Now Circle of Power is a fantastic mod that actually boosts your resistance by 15% every time that you use a skill. Now this can stack up to 3 times, so you can get 45%. And this deteriorates every 7 seconds, and this goes up every time you use a skill. Now using melee is a skill, so that boosts this up. Every time when you activate Golem, that's a skill. When you activate Reflect Bullets, that's a skill. So you can essentially at the very least have 2 stacks of this running the whole time, and when shit gets hairy you can have 3, which again just means a lot less damage for you. Then we have Brawl on here, which boosts the melee damage that you do by 100%, so you're basically dealing double damage, which is great. I mean, melee's damage is so low, so any little bit that we can stack onto it is great. Then in the gloves, we have Captain Hunter, which is arguably like the main reason why anybody would want to go looking for Cannonball pieces, is because you'd want to strip this off it. And then I have a mod on here for Tremor that gives me 1 additional pulse or 1 additional explosion. On the boots, again, I'm using Anomaly Power here because I'm trying to squeeze as much as, you know, a little bit of damage into those explosions from Tremor. I have Crush Sequence on here, which makes it pulse another 2 times. So in total, we have 3 additional explosions on it. And then I have Untamed Power on here. Untamed Power is kind of like a staple when you play Devastator, because again, you're always in close range, especially if you're utilizing the Moaning Winds meta. And so this again fires off this anomaly burst of damage every time when you use a skill. It's also a 5-meter radius, and this damage is equal to 30% of your anomaly power. So the higher you stack your anomaly, the higher this goes. Generally, if you are fully built for anomaly, you can get these to pulse for a minimum of 50k, which is really not bad, and over time that damage really does stack up. But because we have lower anomaly here, this is only 30k. But again, every time you melee, this fires off. Every time you use one of your abilities, this fires off. As mentioned with the skills, also we're not stacking that much cooldown reduction, so you do have some you know, hefty cooldowns here. But Tremor sitting at 12.6, Reflect Bullets at 15.3, but that doesn't really matter because we'll just be using it to sort of like activate, deactivate, activate, deactivate. So it's essentially on a cooldown of 1 second. And then Golem on 18.3, which is kind of long, but again, by sort of feathering between Tremor, Reflect Bullets, and Golem, you can always be sure that at least one of these 3 are active and also protecting you. The class tree, we do go bottom tree because we want to pick up some specific nodes that help our melee. But we're going to travel down here. We're going to pick up Paladin. Paladin gives you this 45% anomaly power ramp up that happens whenever you activate Golem for 10 seconds or you activate Reflex for 10 seconds. You can always have this buff on due to the fact that you can essentially toggle reflect bullets and have this on. So you can always increase your anomaly power by almost 50%. We do go up here to get strong arm of the anomaly. We're using the melee the whole time. Every time when we use it, you get resistance piercing 15% for each enemy hit. So if you AoE melee into like 5 guys, then you're getting 15 times 5 that amount of resistance piercing. When you then activate Tremor, it's gonna pierce any resistances that they might have, as well as when you use Moaning Winds. Then we're gonna carry on down here. We do pick up strong arm of the law. This again doubles the damage of the class melee skill. So now we have 2 doubles here. I know that sounds great, but the melee still does not really do that much damage. It's pretty good against like really small trash like small perforos and so, but I mean almost negligible against anything that's a little bit chunkier. Then we do pick up protected by the anomaly. This gives us additional armor, 40% in actual fact of our anomaly. We have like 100k anomaly, so we're basically getting 40k additional armor, which is pretty good. That gets us very close to the 100k mark just by this, and that gets us a lot of damage mitigation, especially, well, specifically coming from, you know, like the physical side. Then we pick up skilled sentry. This says that it increases your armor and your resistance by 20% for 10 seconds when your skills end. You're constantly using skills with this, so this is also basically something that has an uptime of 100%. We do pick up pure anomaly, which again increases your resistance piercing. So there's a whole bunch of resistance piercing that's present on here. It's just unfortunate that there's no way for you to share this outwards with the rest of your team, at least not in this setup that we have here. And last but not least, we get Earth's Heritage. This increases tremors, explosions by 50%, and it's just an all-around flat damage increase for that. That's it for the build, guys. In all honesty, I didn't even want to spend this much time and attention on this, because at the same time I also don't want you to spend this much time and attention on it. But at least this gives me a video that I can refer to when anybody ever asks me, hey, can you make it work or not? Now, did I give this 150% 4D chest brain, you know, thoughts to make this work? Yes and no. I did spend some time on it. I did test it on different characters and ended up settling on the Devastator. But nonetheless, I think that there's no real benefit that you can get between picking between this and another set. Yes, some of the other class sets are pretty terrible. You know, I'm looking at you over there in the back, Technomancer, with your poison set. But yeah, I still think this is obviously just a set for the memes, and it's basically just for stripping off some of those mods if you're looking for them. But more than anything else, I think it is something that I hope that people can fly look at when we see the paid DLC drop somewhere in 2022, and that they kind of take a pass at this set, maybe make it a little bit more spicy, but also consider the pitfalls of this set and what didn't work with it when they perhaps introduce future neutral sets. But as always, thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. Have a look in the description of this video at the Discord for my channel and go and check it out. Jump into that and you will find like-minded gamers who enjoy Outriders as well as other games. There are rooms there where you can group up. There's areas where you can ask questions about builds and all of that. And most importantly, you'll just be hanging out with a whole bunch of cool folk. So why don't you come and join us? Thank you so much for watching. As I've mentioned, it's super important to me that you have a great morning, a great afternoon, and a super awesome evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.